Yeah, start it.
We did the Ltad model, which is the long-term athlete development model by Bailey and Hamilton. It kind of goes through the stages from athlete development, going from young age to older. It goes through kind of where the kids or athletes should be at what stage and age in their life.
Yep. So there's 7 stages, but the number of stages can actually depend on early specialisation. But basically there is 7 that athletes can follow. So you've got the active start, which is up to the age of 6, and that's where you go through sampling and you'll try different sports. And that's through structure, so you might go to swimming, little football like games and that sort of thing, or it's just going and playing with your mates. And that's just helping to develop physical development and also mental development, so focusing on stuff like your brain function. It then goes on to fundamentals, which is for boys 6 to 9 and girls 6 to 8, because obviously we develop all at different ages. And that's where you start to have more structured activity, which then focuses on development. And that focuses on the fundamentals of movement, so agility, coordination, which then leads on to learn to train, which for girls is 8 to 11 and boys 9 to 12. And that's focusing on, again, fundamentals, but going into more fundamentals and foundation for sports and skills. So you'd still do a range of sports, but it starts to lead more into specialisation of certain sports.
And then you go on to train. So the age depends on the individual's growth spurt, but generally for boys it's 12 to 16 and then girls 11 to 15. So this stage is aimed to develop aerobic fitness, speed and strength. It progresses their sport-specific skills and tactics, still just focusing on correct techniques and execution. The next stage is training to compete. This trains the athlete how to compete, either if they've chosen to specialise in one sport or to pursue recreational level sport. This would involve high volume, high intensity training, and it begins to occur all year round as well. The next one goes on to train to win. So this is those who have been identified with talent as elite. This will push on and pursue an intense training suitable for an international winning performance. And then the last one is active for life. So if the children have gone through all of these stages, they will be physical literate, and they will have the necessary skills and confidence to enter this stage at any age. So if they've dropped out, they can come back in at recreational or as a sport coach or official as well.
Cool. Now, in terms of strength, this model is probably one of the most widely adopted models. I think the FA at one point had the LTPD model, and I think other organisations and sports have taken it on board. It's one that's meant to map out an overall journey that an athlete, where they start and they finish. It's one of the ones that starts to focus down on young people needing a wide experience to experience different sports and moving patterns at a young age, and then tries to map out a journey with specific physiological aspects they need as they move through the journey. It's something that started to bring in the use of PHV, peak height velocity, in weights as well, in terms of using that as a guideline for where athletes are in their journey. But I don't want to just read on that. Hopefully that's all on there for the strengths and weaknesses. For the strengths. In terms of the weaknesses, basically it's not really based on any sort of empirical evidence or theories that I could find. The best I could find was it was based on observations by Ian Hamilton. There's also a lot of stuff on critiquing the windows of opportunity and actually saying, well, if you miss a window, that doesn't necessarily mean that's it, that's gone, you can't reach elite level or reach the top level. There's still opportunities to work on certain aspects. So for example, strength can still be developed after the 6 to 12 window, whatever it may be. It suggests development's linear. It suggests you go from point A to point B. If you follow that journey, everything will work. I don't think it takes into account psychological and environmental factors which have a great impact on an athlete's journey. It basically just it's very cold in terms of you do this, you will get here. I wasn't sure about the late developers, whether it accounts for them or not. I think it suggests if you've missed stages, you can't then catch up. Where certainly in the sport I'm involved in, I've seen a lot of players who suddenly go through a growth spurt and suddenly can do things and perform at a better level than they were before, and they've missed those stages, as it were. Again, I don't want to read through that, everything there, just certain gaps in it. These are things that Bay himself sort of came up with and said that are possible things that are missing interpretations or don't quite work with the model. And one of the key ones I think was around the fundamental stuff here, where I think the model very much focuses on the elite end of the spectrum, but when you apply it to grassroots level, which is the biggest part of the pyramid, if that's such a crucial stage, you're now giving that over to, with all due respect, volunteers and maybe level 1 coaches where you might not have the expertise to help that kid develop, which means you're missing potentially, according to this model, a crucial stage in development, giving them the crucial skills to be able to move on and perform in their sport later on. Just a little thing on the coach education as well. Again, I've done a lot of coach education courses and they briefly skim over it, and there was a time when everyone bought into it and it became the big thing, and again now it's something that's been put by the wayside and you don't really hear it anymore, so you don't really get an in-depth knowledge of it. You basically get, this is the next best thing, everyone jumps on the bandwagon and follows it, and then you don't hear from it again. No one really gets an in-depth knowledge of it.
Yeah, and just to like round it all up, I actually found a case study that basically treated the sort of like the LTDA. It obviously there's a number of sports that sort of adapt their own to like suit their like individual athletes and everything. I found one for swimming, and they called it the swimming pathway, and it basically said that there was 2 like main negative impacts on it, and it was like through the idea of athletes overtraining, which affected their performance, and the idea of as well that they were trying to fast track young swimmers to reach them high levels. As well as this, there's actually like contradicting elements of competitions, of that competition rules and the swimming pathways. So in 2002, boys and girls, boys aged 10 and girls aged 11, were prohibited from competing in 100 metres unless they first achieved qualifying time for the corresponding 200 metre event. So it was basically saying that, in a sense, they had to perform well and compete in a race that required them to swim faster and swim stronger, but actually that basically contradicted against what the their adapted LTDA, their swimming pathway said. It was that at that stage it was focusing more on technique. There was performance, but the competition rules wanted to focus on performance rather than technique. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much.